Today we're going to draw a perfect grid onto a piece of paper, and we're going to use a tool called a T-square to do it. So you'll need a little bit of tape. I use blue tape because it won't rip the paper, a pencil, and a T-square. The first thing you're going to do is bring your T-square to the edge of your paper, and you're going to mark off in increments, and we're going to be using 2 inches. So we look for the 2 and go right on that long line above it and go ahead and make a mark. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 22. And you'll notice that my mark kind of goes away. It's not like a dot. I didn't go sideways. It goes away from the ruler, so I know kind of what direction that I did that in. Now I can go ahead and turn the paper, and I'm going to do my lines going in the other direction. So again, 2 inches. I look for the long mark right above the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. All right. Now, for the next step, this is where you're going to need the tape, and you're going to need to be at a table that has straight edges on it, because we're going to use that table to help us. If you don't have tables with straight edges, you can use a drawing board that has straight edges. But we're going to use the table, and we're going to line up the edge of our paper with 2 edges of the table. So I've got the front edge lined up, and I've also got this side edge lined up, and I'm going to put 1 piece of tape here and another piece of tape over on the side. And this way I know my paper is not going to move. My next step is to take my T-square, and I'm going to put it against the table right on that edge. And I want to make sure I'm not allowing it to slide at all. And I'm going to go ahead and line it up with the mark that I created, and I can strike a line going all the way across. Now, this line is rather light, so it might not be picked up by the camera, so I'll go a little darker, and each time I create a line, and you can see that they're going to be parallel because we're using our tool, this T-square, to make our lines. Now, if at some point you're going to be erasing your grid, you want to work as light as possible so it's easy to erase. If the grid is going to stay, then it really doesn't matter. I'm going to make these lines a little too dark simply because I want the camera to pick up on the lines. So I go in one direction. I'm being very careful. I line up with my mark. And then there's one mark here. And now I can go in the other direction. So I make sure my T-square is hugging the edge of the table. I don't want it to be a little bit off, hugging the edge of the table. And because I'm going along the long distance of it, I can actually put my hand down here and just make sure it doesn't shimmy at all. And line up with the next mark and make a mark. And you can see this goes rather quickly, and we get a perfect grid, and we can use this for grid transfer images, whether you're doing a still life or a portrait. This technique will work for you and give you a very accurate grid. When you're done, you want to find your image. If you're doing a grid transfer, count the number of squares, count the number here, and remove any extra squares so you don't get confused by your project. But that is how you draw a perfect grid using a T-square.